Yeah, and I'm gonna give, um, yeah. Hi, Jose.
Hello, everyone. Yeah, just wanted to add something quick to what our conversation was about the yucca and the plantain, and really with any fruits or vegetables or herbs that you take from the earth. One thing we learned from the mamos, from the indigenous tribes, that part to get to know the plants is to plant one and nourish it and learn about when to harvest it and all of that, but also before you actually take it and try to consume it, to take all the nutrients that the plant has for us, to to really just like give thanks to the plant and really like have that special connection, and how to build that, I think, is very important, and part of of that process, uh, like to grow it and to seed the soul to grow it, and then to harvest it. But before you harvest it, just to like give thanks. That way, that translation of nutrients will then be all concentrated into the plant, or vegetable, or whatever you're gonna consume. Thank you for the space. Thank you, Diego and Joe, for holding space here and this opportunity. Holding.
Thank you, Jose. Yeah, Tara in my breakout group was sharing about braiding sweetgrass, this beautiful book that also speak about, giving thanks to plants before picking them up, or also ask permission. But that's the case of wild plants like sweetgrass. So I don't see anyone else that raised her or his hands. Anyone else who wants to share?
I don't see the raise hand button, but can you hear me?
Yeah,
Hi.
yeah.
So it was interesting for me, the first question, what landscape has engulfed you, so to speak, is the one that is the most disconnected from anyone. It's 150 years old, and a project of repurposing, the highway, the Erie Canal. I go there to sort of see how ugly things are. In a weird paradoxical way, it's very therapeutic. Um, what makes me feel separated is, where I grew up is surrounded by tillage and a landscape optimized for machines and not people. Um, and who can connect me with change in this larger emerging civilizational organism, I think, is digital opportunities like this, but my immediate surroundings first. Um, my daughter will be here May 12th, and the fire that sort of burns from the inside out is going to lead me to motivate myself out of my millennial sort of video game pretty technology fascination, and into one more real and grounded in the ecology around here. But I want to save time for everyone else. That's a sloppy thought for me. So I can clarify anything if I didn't make sense. I do that a lot. Thanks.
Thank you, Benjamin. That makes sense to me at least. I don't know everybody else, but it did to me. And so Marty also asked raise his hands.
Yeah.
Hi, Marty.
Hi there, Diego. And greetings, everybody. I was asked in my group a question I wasn't expecting, which was about the bioregion of London. And it so happens that just this week, I spoke to a friend of mine who's responsible for all of the royal parks. of London, and I had no idea that she had been under a lot of pressure to close them during this COVID-19 outbreak. And she had had two very different kinds of responses from people. One was, how dare you keep these places open because they're just going to facilitate the spread of illness. And on the other hand was many more people writing in, thank you for saving my life. Because we need to be in nature. And that was very, very affecting for me, because people are so busy in these cities, and it's very easy to overlook the mental health side of things and how vital the connection to nature is. So I was really happy that she'd been able to, you know, succeed in that endeavor to keep them open.
Good perspective, yeah. Thank you, Marty. And yeah, nobody else has raised the hand. So we can also close a little bit earlier if there's nobody else who wants to share. I see Mike or you. And yeah, can you hear me? Go ahead.
I just moved back to Western Canada, to the Pacific Northwest, after being living abroad for 7.5 years, living in big cities in Southeast Asia and smaller cities in Europe. And we were both struck by how big everything is here. You know, the mountains are huge and very majestic. We're just at the outskirts of Rocky Mountains, where we are in a town called Kamloops, and how much space there is here in wilderness. And yet, you know, in the city, everything is very trim and proper. You know, the grass is cut very short, and any gardens are in boxes, and you know, the bushes are square, and so nature is very tame. And for me, that makes me feel very disconnected from nature, even though we are surrounded by wilderness. So what I realized will help me reconnect is me. I have to go out and redevelop a relationship with the landscape, with the nature, with the plants and the animals that are here, with the birds, with the trees, to go out and just to sit and listen and let the nature speak to me in its own language, rather than, you know, me trying to impose something on it. And it's in that relationship that I will rediscover connection, because it's not just, you know, me looking at a nice landscape, it's me participating with it. So I will have to learn about the plants that grow there, which ones are edible, and we'll have to pick them and, you know, find how I interact with them. Maybe learn hunting eventually, and as well. I would like to do that. So yeah, it's I guess the main theme was that redeveloping that relationship, participating with the nature.
Yeah, I love that. It's also about relationship, and also Rainer, I think in our breakout group, was sharing about how important was for him to having developed a familiarity with the mountains that surround his place, that he's seen them in many different seasons, and how that relationship contributed also to his sense of place. So, Joe, I would let to you the closing remarks.
Oh. Yeah, or is there anyone else who would like to share first before we close?
I actually would like to just go on from where Yuvi is.
Please.
Because I've been in that place where I am in a town, being in connection with what is growing around me and natural growth coming in. But I have been pushed into just being an individual, and I hear a lot of answers here in terms of what are you going to do individually? What am I doing individually? And I would like to hear a lot more about how we can get beyond that. Not only, you know, in a community is forming, you know, that's going to live in the countryside, but where we are, how can we begin to use language that shows that we need, and it's possible to have the same kind of interrelationships that I see all around me when I'm sitting outside with all the different plants and animals, you know, and it's not just me as one person out there. How can I join? How can I find the joiners?
That's a beautiful segue to what I actually wanted to say in closing. So thank you, Anita, for sharing that. Just that the webinar on Saturday was a brief exploration of large-scale collaboration efforts where people are trying to restore 1 million hectares of land or reinvent supply chains for manufacturing, preserve biodiversity and other such things that require really deep capacities for collaboration. And one of the things that I think is really powerful for us as a reminder in how to do that is that we let the landscape lead us. If we organize ourselves around the drainage flow of water, if we let ourselves be organized around the movement of animals through their ecological networks, if we let ourselves be guided by the historical cultural patterns of human subsistence, and that we'll start to see that we actually join a conversation that is like the way that the river talks or the way that the forest talks, and how children babble and giggle when they're with us. And as we do this, we'll actually rediscover our ability to co-create, to actually be participants in a creative process, which is what's so essential in healing landscapes. Like here where we are in the Andes in Colombia, the river has gone underground. It went underground for like 40 years ago when they cut down the forest. But if we know how to pay attention, we can feel the water moving underground and we can bring it back to the surface. But we have to have a feeling of what the connection is, what the language and the pattern is of the landscape to know how to collaborate around it. And so, so I think that that's a big part of the answer to this question of how do we find other people and connect together, is we look to the organizing patterns of the landscape itself. And as we do that, we see how to connect ourselves to that landscape and its functions. And then we humans become part of something like an orchestra, where we all have different harmonies and resonances to put into it, but the whole thing begins to function in a harmonious way. And we can do that with small acts initially, and then grow them to larger and larger scales. So what I love about these breakout groups, start to have these little interactions with each other and start to practice that orchestration for what the study group does in an interpersonal space using the digital tools. And then as we go back into our own backyards and our own rivers and our own mountains and our own landscapes, that we can start to bring those relationships more to life than they are at present. And there's so much need for that in the world right now. So just want to say thank you all for being here and participating in these conversations. Thank you to Diego for facilitating. And thank you for everyone's honesty and openness and sharing during our small group conversations. It's really powerful. So thank you all for being here. And Diego, is there anything else you want to say in closing, or shall we wrap up?
Yeah, we can wrap up. And yeah, as usual, if people have suggestions, even in meantime, we can talk more also on the website of the study group.
All right, thank you everyone for being here. It's lovely to talk with you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. It was so nice to meet you all.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you very much.
Nice to meet you.
Thank you, everyone.
Everyone, take care.
Bye.
Thank you. Much love. Bye.
Bye.
Yeah, just